Good morning. Today we'll have a lecture on the role of police, the prosecution and the criminal justice system relating to gender justice. The police constitutes a very important component of the criminal justice system of our country, for that matter of any country. The main function of the police is to maintain law and order, to create conditions in the society which are congenial for everybody to grow and develop, and to control and prevent crime. When we talk about the role of police in controlling and preventing crime or acts of violence against women, we find that in most cases the police response is inadequate and inappropriate. Why is this so? We have many examples. I can quote some examples to you right now. Let us suppose that a woman is beaten up by her husband every day in a house. This is a case of domestic violence. She musters the courage to go to the police station and wants to file a complaint against her husband. When she goes to the police station, the concerned police officer, instead of registering a complaint that she wants to be registered, tells her that she should go back home and be a good mother and a good wife, and that she should not bring out a private matter in the open or in the public domain. He also tells her that beating or shouting is part of wear and tear of marital life. He does not empathize with her at all. He makes her feel guilty. She has no other option but to go back. It is examples like this example where women lose the confidence of actually coming forward and complaining about violence that is being committed against her. Let us take another example. Let us suppose that a victim of rape wants to go to the police station to file a complaint. She goes after a lot of thinking and there meets a police officer. Instead of registering a rape case immediately against the accused, he tells the woman to take it easy, wants more evidence from her, puts very embarrassing questions before her, and makes her feel guilty about the fact that she's coming forward to make a complaint against somebody. Now, as a consequence, what happens is a lot of material evidence which should go in the court during trial against the accused is lost. And who is now the loser? The woman. We find that at the complaint stage, at the interrogation stage, at the investigation stage, at the acquittal stage, or in the trial stage, at any stage, it is important for the police personnel to be sensitive towards women's problems. They must learn to empathize with her. She is weak as society thinks her to be weak, but otherwise she is a strong person. She just needs a helping hand, a support from somewhere, and if it comes from the enforcement agency, the better. We have with us today Dr. Anurag Deep, who is an associate professor working with the Indian Law Institute, New Delhi. He did his law degree from BHU University, Varanasi, and completed his master's in law from the same university. He completed his PhD degree from Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gorakhpur University on the topic Law Relating to Terrorism and Violation of Human Rights. At this university, he also helped in developing case material for the law students. At the Indian Law Institute, Anurag has got a good reputation of being a very good researcher. He has written several articles in the national journals across India. His expertise in criminal law and alternate dispute resolution mechanism is well known. I'm sure when you listen to his lecture, you'll understand why and how the police is indifferent to the problems faced by women in a country, and that is why every day we see new forms of crimes being committed, new forms of violence being committed against women across the country or in every part of the country.
Hello friends, my presentation is on very topical issue, gender justice and role of police. This is divided into two parts. First is conceptual contour and second is functional contour. In the conceptual contour part, we will try to understand what is the meaning of gender justice and what are the substantive penal laws that deal with gender justice issues. In the functional contours, we will discuss how these penal laws are made enforceable through CRPC process. So, what is the meaning of gender justice? The dictionary meaning of gender refers not just to female but male and female both. One UNESCO document suggests that the cultural role, the role in the family, the role in the society of male and female both, they jointly make the term gender. Now, second important point is justice. Justice is ultimate satisfaction of mind, body and soul, and this ultimate satisfaction through legal process, and the satisfaction or a feeling that good has been done and bad has been suitably reflected or suitably addressed. So, jointly gender justice is a set of values, set of rules, set of principles and a pledge. This pledge is made by individual, by family, by society, by police, by the courts, by the prison officials, that the entire women community will be treated fairly, justly and reasonably in such a manner that human rights of women is protected, preserved and promoted. So, the next important point is how the role of police comes. When a crime takes place, police machinery is the first machinery which comes in picture. So far as crime against women is concerned, this crime against women can be classified in two parts. One is those crimes which are dealt by Parent Act like Indian Penal Code, and second is those crimes which are dealt with special legislation like female feticide, regarding SC/ST violence. This presentation is limited to Parent Act, that is Indian Penal Code. In the Indian Penal Code, the crime against women can be further classified as those crimes which necessarily use violence. For example, dowry death, for example, sexual offences like rape and acid attack, and the second category is those crimes where violence is not an essential element. For example, dealing with the modesty, injuring the modesty of a woman under section 354, or insulting women under section 509, or 2013 amendment, 4 offences have been incorporated, 354 capital A, B, C and D. So, these offences are offences where violence is not an essential part. Indeed, under 354 capital A and B, C and D, only B requires mens rea element. In previous traditional offences like 354 or 509, mens rea is an element. So, it was sometimes very difficult to prove these cases. Therefore, in 2013, this burden of police to bring those elements which prove mens rea has been slightly reduced, and 354 capital A, there are 3 actus reus which needs to be proved individually. For example, if a person makes unwelcome step towards a woman, or if he shows pornographic clips, or even words like words which deal with sexual harassment, or those words which may not be directly direct proposal for sexual favor, but which are sexually colored remarks, they are also made penal, because in the previous laws under section 354 or 509, it was very difficult for the police to find evidences for these type of crimes, and therefore new types of crimes have been incorporated through 2013 amendment. They also cover some aspect of cyber crime. For example, voyeurism is there, For example, stalking is there, and another offence is 3054B. There was a tendency, especially in rural areas, to disrobe women either because of caste purpose or because of any other purpose. So a separate offence has been made for this purpose. Now, the other offences which do not need violence as an element are 498 capital A, where words can be used as one of the mode of cruelty. Then demand of dowry is another offence which is separately punishable under Dowry Prohibition Act 1961. So these are the offences where police, based on the crime, sometime it needs mens rea element, sometime it does not need mens rea element. So the police must know very clearly what are the elements of crime. Indeed, when new offences come in, the police is, good number of time police is not aware of whether mens rea element is required or not, and what are the actus reus element is required or not, despite all those training. So these weaknesses of police has to be addressed, and they ultimately lead to certain acquittal. Now, once we discuss that these are some of the offences which deal with crime against women, the next is those offences where violence is an essential element. For example, acid attack case. Acid attack was made a special offence through 2013 amendment under 326 capital A and 326 capital B. Now, police needs to understand what are the elements of this 326 capital A and 326 capital B. Because these offences were previously prosecuted under grievous hurt clause, and then other offences. Next offence is dowry death. Dowry death it was incorporated in 1986 because of various dowry death cases. Now, it is the duty of the police to understand that there are certain elements which are different from the elements of murder. For example, in dowry cases, there is no need to directly prove mens rea. So there is no such theoretical requirement of mens rea. The police must be very sure what are the evidences which indicate that marriage took place within 7 years. There was cruelty. Cruelty had a causal relation. It was in context of demand of dowry and not in context of other things. If it is in context of other things, then it cannot be dowry death. And one more important thing, that the death took place under abnormal circumstances. Sometimes it happens that the body is not found because of one reason or other reason, but that hardly matters. Police unnecessarily insist that because the body is not found, it is difficult to prove 304B, but that is not correct. Even if body is not found, that can be proved as offence which has been committed under unforeseen or abnormal circumstances, which is one of the element of 304 capital B. Then one important aspect is that there is in the Evidence Act there are special provisions, and special provisions say that once these 4 or 5 elements of dowry death are proved, then the burden shifts on the accused. Now, prosecution should be very clear that this is the shifting of onus, not the burden. The main burden is persuasive burden, the main burden is legal burden, and the prosecution has to prove all these 6 or 7 elements in dowry death as an essential element, and it has to prove beyond reasonable doubt. If it cannot prove beyond reasonable doubt these elements, the onus does not shift. Sometimes there is a confusion among prosecution that because in Evidence Act there is a special clause that shifts the burden, therefore the responsibility of prosecution is reduced, which is completely wrong. Therefore, police as well as the prosecution both should be very careful that even if there is a reverse onus clause under Evidence Act regarding dowry death, the elements are required to be proved beyond reasonable doubt. Now, one of the most serious and most heinous crime is sexual offences against women. They are named as rape under section 375 of IPC. This section has been amended majorly in 1983. and then in 2013 and recently in 2018 also. So, in 1983 this was amended because of a very infamous case of a girl whose name is M, and the case is one of the accused was Ganesh. So, they were acquitted because the prosecution failed to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt, because the prosecution failed to prove that there was no consent, because the prosecution failed to prove that the relationship was not consensual, and the judges failed to appreciate that even if there are no clear marks of injury, there can be just a submission there, and the submission does not amount to consent. So, the prosecution, the police and the prosecution both needs to understand the difference between submission and consent. So, after 1983 certain amendments were made, and again in the Evidence Act the burden has been shifted, taking care of 1983, the rape can be of two types. One is general rape and second is custodial rape or maybe gang rape. So, in general rape case, burden of proof never shifts. Consent has also to be proved. So, police must understand that this general rape cases, police has to find evidences of absence of free consent, and prosecution has to prove the evidence of free consent. On the other hand, in cases of gang rape, in cases of custodial rape, once the girl says that there was no consent, the court has no option, but there is a shall presumption, and court has to presume that there was no consent. In that case, burden of police and prosecution is slightly reduced, but again what the Wilmington rule says, burden of proof never shifts. It is a persuasive burden, and police and the prosecution both have to prove the case beyond reasonable doubt. Then after 2012, the infamous Nirbhaya case, there were various changes made in the substantive part of the rape offense of rape, and certain changes were made in the procedural part of the rape cases. In 2018 also certain changes have been made in the substantive part and as well as the procedural part of part that deals with rape cases. So, this is what the conceptual aspect of gender justice and criminal law. That means those offences which deal with issues of gender justice, and the next aspect is the functional aspect. In this segment we shall discuss the functional aspect of gender justice and role of police. When a crime against women takes place, there are various modes that the crime can be reported to police. The traditional mode is to approach the police directly, but in the time of technology there are mails. Through mails it is sent to the police station. Sometime through media the information is received in the police station. So, however, because of technological development, because of population, because of poor performance at the level of police and prosecution, that the conviction is not taking place and deterrence has been reduced, and various other reasons, crime against women are on rise. Therefore, at the executive level there are certain very good proposals that has been made and that have been executed. For example, while 100 number is a general number for all police to approach the police, but there are certain dedicated lines like 1090, 1091. These are in process, under process, and these are available to women who are in distress, who want to contact police either in Delhi or maybe in Uttar Pradesh or maybe in Jharkhand. In Bihar there is a dedicated line 181. Similar lines are available in so many in almost all the states, and the government is considering an exclusive dedicated line to deal with crime against women. Now, when a woman who is a victim of crime against women approaches the police has to be additionally cautious. Police has to be additionally alert. It has to be very sensible. because police station itself is a place which makes anyone uncomfortable. So when it comes to the vulnerable class, there is no surprise if it feels very uncomfortable if it makes inconsistent statement. So police should understand that in the police station, a female who is approaching, it is a different type of crime that the police is dealing with, and therefore it should be very sincere and very sensitive to while dealing with the victim of crime against women. Indeed, some of the states like Odisha has issued proper guideline how to deal with these ladies who approach the police station for crime against women. So once a lady approaches a police station, because almost all the offences in IPC are cognizable in nature which deal with crime against women except 4 offences, therefore police is bound to register the complaint of the informant or complaint of the victim. Now first difficulty that a female or an informant faces is that police either says that there is no such jurisdiction and therefore it cannot lodge an FIR, while the current status is there is a concept of zero FIR, and zero FIR means any police station can lodge any case. It is not limited to only crime against women. So therefore, even if there is a case of crime against women which is reported in a police station which has no jurisdiction, even then the police has to lodge an FIR, and then it can be passed to another police station, concerned police station. Second difficulty is that the police says that it will make some preliminary inquiry in order to find some veracity of the offence, whether the offence is actually committed or not, but the police cannot do. There is a constitution bench case, that is Lalita Kumari case. Lalita Kumari case, the Supreme Court unanimously said that if a cognizable offence is reported, and sexual offences at 354, 498A, these all cases are dowry death, these all cases are cognizable offences cases. So the police has no option but to register an FIR. It is mandatory. Of course, in the Supreme Court judgment there are certain exceptions, and domestic disputes and family disputes are some exception, but in those cases also preliminary inquiry can be made only for 15 days. After 15 days the police has to give some reasoning whether the FIR is lodged or why the FIR is not lodged. But in any case, in the general diary, every information, whether registered as an FIR or not registered an FIR, has to be lodged, and it deals with all the crimes, and so it deals with crime against women. So if the police does not register a offence which is a crime against women or which is a sexual offence, then indeed there can be various remedies, and at least there are 3 remedies. One, that if a woman approaches as a victim and the police fails to register, denies registering the case, then number 1, it is a case of contempt, because it is a case of willful denial of the Supreme Court judgment. Second, there can be a departmental proceeding regarding which the judgment also says that the police shall be made accountable. But what is more important is that through 2013 amendment, section 166 capital A has been incorporated in Indian Penal Code, and it says that in sexual offences and and not just sexual offences, but in cases of section 354, 354 ABCD, 509 which deals with crime against women, and of course the whole group of rape cases. In all those cases, if the police fails to register a case, then there can be a prosecution and the police can be punished. So therefore there are 3 remedies: contempt and civil proceeding like departmental proceeding, and there can be a prosecution of police if they do not register a case. However, in practice every day good number of complaints are not being registered, either because the victims are not aware of the laws, or because there is no one to pursue these type of cases. This is regarding registration, that registration is mandatory, and even if there is no jurisdiction, as I submitted previously, the registration of crime against women has to be made by the police. Now the next important question is that when a woman as a victim approaches the police station, she will certainly feel very uncomfortable. So the law has addressed this issue also, and it has made provisions that these type of offences, 354, 509, 354 ABCD, which has been incorporated in 2013, and all sexual offences, in all these cases the FIR shall be registered mandatorily by a women police officer. Now the incorporation and mandatory presence of a women police officer is very good, because it will definitely make the women more comfortable. She can tell her difficulties, she can tell her problems more comfortably vis-a-vis had this been recorded by a male. So this is a very welcome step that has been taken. And in case if the offenses, if the victim of offence is someone who is especially challenged, mentally and physically challenged, in that case there is no requirement that it should approach to the police station. Indeed, in that case the lady police officer has to go to the home of the victim or to any suitable place where the victim is victim wants to register, in the presence of their guardian or their relatives, and then there has to be an interpreter who can interpret and who can convey, because the sexual offence or other offences have been committed against a person who is physically or mentally challenged. But there is one difficulty. The difficulty is that in both the case, in this case where if a guardian is required to be there, if a relative is required to be there, then police officer, that is lady police officer, should be extremely cautious, because good number of sexual offences cases are committed by people who are known, sometimes they are relative. So the police should be very cautious that the presence of relative should not be presence of the accused. Then the second duty of the police officer, this lady police officer, is that this registration of FIR should be recorded, video recorded. This video recording is another good step, because it will ensure whatever the statement in the complaint has been made by the complainant, the victim, the same is recorded, because there has been a complaint that the victim reports something but that is not written as it is. Suppose the victim gives the name of someone and the police does not write, because the victim is a very influential person. So this video recording is an essential, and this is indeed the second step and second duty of the police officer that has to be that is the responsibility which has to be discharged. The next important thing is that in sexual offences cases, medical is essential, medical test is required. So the police officer must take note that as early as possible medical of the victim should be conducted. But before conducting any medical, the law requires that the consent of the victim must be taken. In other words, if the victim does not give consent for the medical test, the police or the prosecution cannot compel her for that medical test. So there may be certain situations where medical test, the victim is not ready to give medical test, but that does not mean that the police cannot find evidences against the accused person. Now the next important duty is that once these things are recorded, once FIR is registered, it has to be the victim has to be presented before a judicial magistrate, and the judicial magistrate has to record the statement. Now this has to be done as early as possible, because once the victim approaches a police station, and then she has to be presented before a judicial magistrate. If there is a long time span, then there are chances that the victim can be pressurized, the victim can be lured, the victim can be compelled to change her statement. Therefore, the police officer should approach the judicial magistrate as early as possible, and judicial magistrate should record the statement as early as possible so that there is no discrepancy between what is lodged in the FIR and what is the statement made before the judicial magistrate. Now, once this FIR is lodged, the second important step is investigation. An investigation can be conducted by any police officer, but there are various stages of investigation. It is always desirable that these type of investigation be conducted by a women police officer, but it is practically not possible because we don't have this much of police officer. For example, every thana do not have police officer. So the next important step that the executive needs to do in order to ensure gender justice in these cases is that there should be enough number of police officers who are women, who are there at least in every thana. Then in every thana there can be various investigation, and it is practically very difficult that every such investigation takes place through a women police officer. So what some of the investigating officers do, and what are the rules what are the rules which have been made as a rules or regulation in some states like Odisha, is that they make a team of police officer, and in each team there is one police officer who is women. Now the law requires that when the statement of the victim is recorded, that statement has to be mandatorily recorded by a women police officer. Women police officer will certainly make her comfortable, and there are executive guidelines that the police officer will go to the home of the victim, and when they go to the home of victim, they should not go in their official clothes. They should go in plain cloth, because if the police comes in some house in our society, there are various type of rumors. So in order to deal with this issue, there are directions, executive directions, that it is desirable that the women police officer or any police officer, when it goes to record the statement of the victim, it should go in plain cloth, make her comfortable, and then record the statement of the victim. So this is the role of police. And when the police in the investigation takes statement of the victim or statement of other witnesses, it should be very careful that all important statement is being taken, like if the accused is identifiable, what is the name of the accused, where does he reside, if the victim is able to identify. Then age of the accused and victim, both are very important, because if the age of the victim is less than 18 years, then it will amount to statutory rape, and it will make the case of the police far more easier. In good number of cases of statutory rape, the defense tries to establish that the age is means the victim is not minor. For example, in the infamous case of Tukaram and Maharashtra, that is case of MSM, the actual age was 14 to 16 years, but the police and the prosecution failed to prove that the girl was minor. Had the girl been minor, the consent could never have been an issue at all. So this is very important, that if the case is of a minor, then the consent is not very essential, consent is not material, and the role of police is indeed reduced. Therefore it should be, police and prosecution should be very careful so far as age is concerned. Then if the accused is apprehended, then the medical test of accused should also be done as early as possible. Then TIP, test identification parade, in case the accused is not identifiable easily and is a stranger, then TIP should be conducted as early as possible. And when the TIP is conducted, then there are various directions that how TIP should be conducted by the police. Those TIPs, those process must be followed. Otherwise, if there is slightest lacuna at the part of police, the directions are not followed. Before TIP is made, if the accused is identified, then the whole process of evidence and the whole trial can be vitiated. So this is how the police and prosecution has to conduct its business in cases of crime against women. It has to be more sensitive, it has to be alert, it has to be aware of the laws, statutory laws, and it has to be aware of the development. One or two important judgments, for example, in Delhi domestic workers case, it was held that the victim can have a lawyer right from the beginning, right from lodging on FIR. The victim can have a lawyer. This judgment has been partially incorporated in CRPC, where it has been mentioned that victim can have lawyer with the prosecution. Next important thing is that when the investigation takes place, and even if a judgment is being passed, even if a trial takes place, the identity of the victim of sexual offences should never be disclosed, and if it is disclosed, this is a separate offence under section 228A of IPC, which was incorporated way back in 1983. But unfortunately, what to tell about intellectuals, what to tell about police officers, in good number of Supreme Court judgments, the identity of the victim has been disclosed. There was a judgment of 2012, there is a judgment of 2015 that the Supreme Court judges have also revealed the name of the victim, identity of the victim, and that was of course inadvertent, but that care has to be done. So police has to follow law, police has to find rules and regulations from the judiciary, and police has to be sensitive. Some step has been taken in the form of women police officer, but more needs to be done. Thank you very much.